Hey, I'm here at RM Sotheby's in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I've never actually been, so I thought I'd come over to the preview that goes on during the AACA Hershey Fall National. There's a preview that goes on all week, and then they hold the auction on Friday. There are a lot of very nice cars here, so we're going to go around and take a look at just a few of them, and I'm going to go hold off until they report the results online so that I can give you some of the prices that these cars went for. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the more interesting things that they have here today. We're going to start things right off with an impressive car. This is a 1911 Oldsmobile Autocrat. Believe it or not, this is a mid-range model for Oldsmobile this year. Olds had been moving up market and was actually a more expensive car than Cadillac. The Autocrat was above the low-range Special, but below the gigantic Olds Limited. Unfortunately for Oldsmobile's aspirations, they still had a reputation for selling these smaller curved dash Oldsmobile. There's a show ribbon. I wonder if we've shown at the same shows. Meadowbrook Concourse. Maybe not. This car has an interesting feature. It has what is referred to as a mother-in-law seat, sort of the precursor to the rumble seat back here. This is where you get to sit if you don't call shotgun fast enough. Anyway, this is an impressively large car, so impressive that it has not one but two running boards to get up in there. This was sold at the Hershey auction for $407,000. 1947 Indian Chief with matching sidecar. This was the first year for the War Bonnet front fender light. The company was starting to be a little short on cash by this point. The introduction of the smaller Warrior didn't help, and they went out of business for good in '53. This motorcycle sold for $60,000. All right, next up we have this beautiful 1904 Cadillac Model B Touring. This was originally owned by the mayor of Monterrey, Mexico, and stayed in his family until the 1990s. This car changed hands for $170,500. This may be the size of a pedal car, but it's surprisingly not. This is a 1946 Electro Bug. I have been able to find no information on it, so it's a little bit of a mystery. There is a little name tag that says it was made by the Electro Car Company in Buffalo, New York, but I can't find any information on them either. It is a really cool child-size electric car, and it looks kind of like a drop tank roadster. The sort of cars that were built starting about this period of time from leftover World War II fuel tanks. Yeah, there's that nameplate. I'm suspicious this might not be an actual antique, but somebody's creation. It's still really cool either way. It sold for $3,300. Let's move outside where they're holding a cookout, serving up hot dogs and hamburgers. So right away, this one caught my eye, because why wouldn't it? This is the 1985 Penske March 85C Indy car. This was driven by Al Unser in 12 races, including 6 podium finishes, and coming in 4th in the 1985 Indianapolis 500. Yes, this is really a car that you could own. It even comes with a spare set of tires. If you're wondering what it would take to own this, the answer is $71,500 in this case. A small price to be king of your local cruise-in. Here's a car you don't see every day, at least around here. This is a 1954 BMW 5016. BMW didn't start importing cars to the United States until 1956, so you really don't see these over here in our shores. It's kind of a rare German luxury car that was just imported here a few years ago. It would have set you back $27,500 at the auction. Let's move a couple years newer to another BMW. This one's a BMW Isetta 300. This was originally a design by Italian firm Iso Autoveicoli. It was licensed to BMW, who heavily modified the design, and it was kind of a hit for them. BMW installed their own engine. It's a single-cylinder motorcycle engine. The original Italian Isetta could do 0 to 30 miles an hour in 30 seconds. The new German engine could do that in half the time. There you can see in the back that this is a four-wheeled car. It's a common misconception that it's three wheels. The engine is accessed through a little door on the side. This 1957 version, if you wanted to take it home, it would have cost you $27,500 at the auction. I always thought one of these would just be super fun to own. Hey, I know you. I've seen the original, so I instantly recognized this recreation of the 1934 Ford Model 40 Edsel Ford Special Speedster. In 1934, Edsel Ford, working with Bob Gregory, designed this Speedster. The chassis is a standard 1934 Model 40, although heavily modified, with a custom body. The original is currently on display at the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House, but this recreation was measured off of that car. It's as close to the original unique car as possible. At the time, there was some talk of this car entering production through coach builder Brewster, but it never really gelled. The engine is a tweaked version of the standard Ford flathead of the time, making 100 horsepower. It represents an intriguing could have been in automotive history. This could have been the Ford sports car. It also could have been yours for $88,000. Really nice design. I'm guessing Henry Ford hated it though. Here's another special build Speedster. This is a 1916 American LaFrance. This started off life as a fire engine for the Omaha Fire Department, but sometime in the 40s or 50s was stripped down to this Speedster that you see. It uses the stock 9.4-liter six-cylinder engine with dual chain drive. This car is basically just a massive engine with a couple of seats. The fact that the whole thing is chain drive just makes it that much cooler. Anyway, this would be a good choice if you like pre-1920s cars but also like to go fast. This could have been yours for $96,250. So it's highly desirable, even more so than that Edsel Ford Speedster. There's a grille that has become familiar. This is a 1949 Allard L-Type. This uses a Ford flathead engine. Although Allard is a British make, many of them used American V8 engines, and this is no exception. This one is purported to be all original with original upholstery and an older repaint. As you may have guessed from the steering wheel position, this was originally sold in England, but moved to the US in 1973. Another typical English touch is over here. You can see the slot for the semaphore turn signal. Although the L-Type was a four-seat road car, Allard really made their name in racing. They would go on to import cars into the United States and install Cadillac engines, sometimes referred to as the Cad Allards. You could have owned this one for $49,500. I have maybe an unpopular opinion about this next car. This is a 1983 Zimmer Golden Spirit. Underneath that fiberglass Neoclassic coachwork lies a 1983 Mustang. My unpopular opinion here is that I like it. Those doors are stock Mustang too, by the way. Neoclassics like this Zimmer or the Excalibur were, well, I hesitate to say popular, but they were around when I was a kid, and I liked them. And that sort of childlike enthusiasm has really stuck with me as an adult, even though as an adult I can look at these things and, well, they're a little goofy maybe. Ooh, nice 80s era push buttons there. Anyway, that's the great thing about being an adult, is you can give yourself permission to like goofy things. And other people won't, well, they might judge you for it, but they really shouldn't. So yeah, I would drive this. I might even wear a white sport coat with shoulder pads. It could have been mine for $33,000. Next up, we have a 1957 Mercury Turnpike Cruiser. This one is an Indianapolis 500 official pace car replica. The convertible Turnpike Cruiser was the absolute top of the line for Mercury in 1957. Also, I think Turnpike Cruiser is a fabulous car name. Anyway, this has always been one of my more favorite models, and at least in my opinion, one of the rare times when the hardtop model looks better than the convertible. Not that the convertible looks bad, I just like the hardtop. It's got good proportions. Plus, it's got those two little cool air inlets at the top of the windshield for the flow-through ventilation. The padded dash is a nice touch, particularly for a car that doesn't have seatbelts. I remember reading an article, I think it was in 1957 Motor Trend, about how seatbelts were unsafe. Anyway, safe or not, you could have taken this car home for $27,500. Hey, there's a famous hood ornament. That's a 1926 Hispano-Suiza H6B. Hispano-Suiza engines were used in World War I fighter planes. After the war, the company adopted the emblem of one of the famous French fighter squadrons, the Storks. It's said that the Wills St. Clair copied this horn ornament, only instead of a stork, it was, well, they used a Canadian goose. Anyway, the Hispano-Suiza aircraft engines were very well built, and this H6B uses an aircraft-derived engine. It makes an impressive 135 horsepower. The body is actually custom built by Hooper and Company of London, so this is an English body on the French car. This car changed hands for $143,000. Back over to an American car, we have this 1925 Duesenberg 122/8 supercharged racer. This is a recreation of the car that Pete DiPaolo won the 1925 Indianapolis 500 driving. His car was called the Immortal Banana Wagon, not only because of its color, but because he said he won so many bananas with it. The car was built using original Duesenberg mechanicals, recreating only when necessary. The car changed hands at the auction for $247,500. Back over to a French car. This is very similar to that 1912 Renault that I saw in the car corral. This one, however, is a 1910 Renault Type BZ. I would have liked to have seen them side by side. This one was exported when new and got special coach work from Moore and Munger in Manhattan, New York. The rumor was that the original owner here was John Jacob Astor, but they've never found any paperwork to prove that. I like the oiler where you can set the drips per minute for the various components of the engine. The car reportedly sold after the auction for an undisclosed amount. I wandered by later and they had the hood up, so I wanted to show you that 4-cylinder 12 horsepower engine with the radiator mounted behind it. They could get away with that rear-mounted radiator arrangement because the amount of cooling needed was not particularly great. Oh, here's a nice car, 1916 Locomobile Model 48. Locomobile was a very well-built early high-end luxury car. Locomobile was eventually acquired by Durant Motors. Durant was formed as a GM competitor, and Locomobile was their luxury mark. Unfortunately, Durant didn't last and took Locomobile with it. This car has a 6-cylinder engine with custom coachwork by Lock & Company of New York. This car was formerly with the Imperial Palace car collection in Las Vegas. It changed hands at auction for $104,500. Hey, wood lights. Behind those fancy headlights is an equally fancy car. That's a 1926 Kissel Goldbug. Kissel out of Hartford, Wisconsin built trucks and fire apparatus, but also some very nice high-end sports cars. The Goldbug in particular was beloved by celebrities. Owners included Mary Pickford, Rudy Valley, Douglas Fairbanks, Jack Dempsey, Amelia Earhart, Fatty Arbuckle, Al Jolson. Geez, everybody who was anybody had one of these. It wasn't a Goldbug, but another Kissel that was used by Anita King in 1915. She's the first female to drive coast to coast across the United States solo. The fate of Kissel is sadly familiar. When the Depression hit, they just ran out of money and went out of business in 1931. This Kissel went to a new owner for $195,250. Here's something I don't get to say very often. It's another Hispano-Suiza. This one is a couple of years earlier. It's a 1923 Type 16T. This is one of only about 15 surviving examples and the only one in North America. Hispano-Suiza was an international company with headquarters in Spain, and this car was built in Barcelona. Other models were built in Paris. Unfortunately, the 1-2 punch of the Spanish Civil War and World War II put an end to car manufacturing. They continued on making aircraft components. This car changed hands for $203,500. That other Hispano-Suiza was French-built, by the way. You should recognize this grille shape. That's a 1926 Bugatti Type 35A. The Bugatti Type 35s are a legendary race car. Type 35s racked up over 1,000 wins in tracks around the world. That's particularly impressive when you consider only about 330 Type 35s were ever built. Bugatti also pioneered the concept of a race-ready, off-the-shelf car that could be purchased and taken directly to the track. This particular car was built up over a period of 6 years using a combination of original Bugatti parts and reproductions. The body, for instance, is entirely reproduction. Anyway, this found a new owner at $176,000. Moving on to something a little newer, here's a 1973 Ferrari 365 GT4. This is a 2+2, meaning it does have a back seat, so you can drive a car with a Ferrari V12 and still have the kids with you. Heck, you could even crank up the AC if you had purchased that option. It was replaced in 1976 with the Ferrari 400, which was nearly identical, except the 400 was available with an automatic transmission. This car changed hands for $68,750. Here's a car that should need no introduction, a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner with Superbird package. Plymouth offered a few reds in 1970. I'm not sure, but I think this is Toured. And it naturally has a white interior because it's, 1970. The success of this car led to a number of changes in NASCAR rules. First, NASCAR dropped the requirement that cars on the track also had to be made available to the public in limited numbers because it was clear that rule wasn't slowing anybody down anyway. Next, they banned aerodynamic aids. That's this big wing on the back. So it really ended the stock car era. It found a new owner at $242,000. Here's an odd one, 1928 Avion Voisin. This is Gabriel Voisin's company. He was a pioneering French aviator who claims to have flown before the Wright brothers. He got into airplane manufacturing, but after World War I moved to cars. He then continued to make cars until 1939, when making things in France was a little more difficult. He used Knight engines, and the cars were custom bodied. The early history of this car is not known, but it is certainly one of a kind. It sold for $44,000, well below the pre-auction estimate, so perhaps a bargain. These are always neat to see. 1953 Nash Healey. It's an interesting story. George Mason of Nash and Don Healey of Healey Motors met while crossing the Atlantic on the Queen Elizabeth liner. Out of that meeting came a partnership that created this car. This car uses a Nash straight six with 3-speed transmission fitted into a Healey Silverstone chassis. After that, the chassis was shipped to Italy, where George Mason had contacted Pininfarina. They supplied the body, resulting in this 100% all-American British-Italian sports car. The Nash Healeys were sold from 1951 to 54 and were America's first real post-Depression sports car. They predate the Corvette by several years, after all. I've run across them a couple of times. They're out there, but they are pretty rare. This one changed hands for $52,250. I'm going to wrap up this little video with some classic American steel. Here's a 1926 Duesenberg Model A dual cowl touring. There's a view of that beautiful Duesenberg engine. 1926 is an important year for Duesenberg. That's the year that E.L. Cord purchased them. Cord decided to take what was already a great American car and really take it to the next level. He wanted to make nothing less than the finest car in the world. That's when he started to develop the Model J. Back to this particular Duesenberg, though, this is a Model A that was delivered to Los Angeles and then fitted with some custom touches there. This car changed hands at the auction for $253,000. Well, that was just a few of the cars that they have here at the RM Sotheby's auction here at Hershey. This goes on during the AACA Hershey Fall Meet. They have a preview all week, and then they have the auction once again, as I said, on Friday. I hope you enjoyed that little sample of some of the cool cars that they have here. If you like that, go ahead and leave a comment. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There should be a link right about there to do that. Or you can go ahead and look at some of my other videos. There should be a link right about there to a random video. Go and check it out. Go ahead, look at all my videos. Just binge on them for a while. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Bye.